Hello, everybody. It is Marie here from Skeins with the Quarantine Diaries for another day. Today is day 28, Wednesday, April 22nd. And can't you believe it? 4 weeks today since we've been at level 4 lockdown. And here we still are, still trucking along, still doing our Quarantine Diaries, still planning things out. And we have one more week to run. So we're light is at the end of the tunnel, people. This is very, very exciting. And to that end, if you are wanting to order yarn from Skeins, you can definitely do so. If you've had yarn which has been ordered since Easter Saturday, it is all sitting there ready, picked and packed, waiting to go out on that courier the instant that we're allowed to do it. We've actually been talking to New Zealand couriers to make sure that those dispatches will go out in a manner that they're not going to be too bogged down and too snowed under, and you're going to be able to get your yarn. If you're definitely wanting to grab some yarn, I would strongly suggest you actually get your orders in this week. Particularly in the next couple of days. If you want it early next week, then that way it gives our team a chance to pick and pack those orders and get those out for when things open up on Tuesday. So yeah, some really good news. A little later on, I've gone through, Claire and I have actually had a good look through and seen what we've got loads of stocks on. There's big holes in some areas, but we've actually got really solid stocks in others. So I'll talk about that a little later on as well. But no, this morning, I have to say, I had to get the old makeup on this morning. I made the fatal mistake, and I did it last Wednesday morning as well, I wake up and I do actually a lot of my emails and work for a good hour or two first thing in the morning. And then I have my coffee, and then I thought, oh, right, I'll do some more knitting on my Rambler. And I watched David Lomas Investigates, which is a new show with David Lomas on demand. And I watched it last week, and then I've just watched it again this morning. And I shouldn't do that because I bawl like a baby every single time. And this morning I'm sitting there. Yeah, incredibly emotional. So this one takes him to Bulgaria and Belgium and all over. And it is... what that means, I mean, that man is amazing. What he does is incredible. But the good news is I was working on my Rambler, and I've actually made a bit more progress on my sleeve. There we go. That's sleeve number 2. Definitely looking like a sleeve. And for those that didn't tune in yesterday, there is sleeve number 1, and I've actually popped some little colour detail at the end. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about some details like that a little later on. But as you can see, I'm making really good progress with that, so I'm quite delighted. But what I was going to talk about today was actually heading down a path of exploration and figuring out, like, when you actually find a stitch or a shape that you particularly love, and then you actually start going down a little bit of a stitching journey with that stitch or shape or pattern, and it can actually take you in a whole bunch of different places that you never thought it would do before. And for me, my knitting was very straightforward for years and years and years, more than 20 years. I just sort of knit, purl, made the most basic of sweaters, would follow a simple pattern, would get a little bit of adventure. I'd get a bit adventurous with colour, with plain stocking stitch or garter stitch. I was quite comfortable if I only had scraps to throw a bit of colour in there and whack a few stripes around and eke things out. I was quite comfortable with that. Wasn't so fond of the sewing out of the ends, of course, no one is, but I would do that. But that was pretty much where I was at. And it was when I started, and I mean, the internet's got a lot to do with this, and magazines and books and the like. When I started sort of delving more into books and magazines and internet, and I started purchasing stitch dictionaries from op shops and all that sort of stuff, and actually seeing some of the incredible effects that can be had just by simple knitting or purling or slip stitches, I realized that, what I was doing was only just the beginning. So the first love for me was a variation on a feather and fan stitch. I saw a feather and fan pattern in a magazine. It was probably actually an earlier edition of this knitting magazine, and I just loved it, absolutely loved it, and gave it a go. And I loved the fact that it created these bobbly waves, and all I was doing was a yarn over and knit two together. And this is one that I showed, I think, yesterday. So this is edition 194. This is from actually almost a year ago, June last year, and they have a section there. And, you know, there you go. There's some feather and fan options there. Now, my version that I use happens to be a 12-stitch version. These ones are, I think, it's very close to this one at the top, which is a 14-stitch variation. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the sort of Art Deco sort of sunburst. And I've talked about it several times. And one of my first ever published designs was a pair of fingerless gauntlets, which I can't show you because they've all either been lost or at work, and I haven't got any here, but called the Ever After Gauntlet. And it was literally just a rectangle of feather and fan, which I popped a seam up the side and kept a hole for my thumb. Really easy. And that pattern, and it just was fun, and it was quick, and it was simple, and you could easily vary it to make it long, and it was just a really easy way to knit something, and I knit oodles and oodles and oodles of them for gifts, and it was just a stitch that I really adored, and I played around with it a lot. So I started out, this is another, I sort of thought, oh, well, I wonder what would happen if I turned it into a scarf. So I did this, and I knitted and kept knitting and kept knitting and kept knitting. I mean, the things that I didn't know then. So of course I didn't realize that it would curl. I mean, I've blocked this multiple times, it still keeps curling. I put garter stitch at the bottom. I now realize that if I put also garter stitch down the sides, that would prevent that from happening. And I have actually written the scarf variation into the cowl that I've done. But I played around with that, and I thought, oh, I loved it. I loved the fact that it was so simple, that it was it was a 4-stitch repeat, and 3 of those stitches were plain stocking stitch, and there was only one lace row. And I thought, this is like alchemy. How can something so beautiful come from just one simple row? It just blew my mind. So what came next was, after the gauntlets, I thought, well, what happens if I take that logic into a cowl? And that's when I created this. So this is the first Ever After cowl I ever did. And it was because I was given, this was a ball of Madeline Tosh, which has got cashmere in it, absolutely stunningly beautiful. I was given this as a gift, a birthday gift, and I wanted to do something really special with it. And that's what I created, the very first one. Loved that so much and thrashed it so much. I'm having to pick dog hairs off all of these. I'm really sorry. That I knitted another one. There's another one there. And I actually played around with this too. I've got a funny feeling I may have adjusted something. Yes, I did. You can see there, I adjusted the stitch count. So one, I obviously reduced it by a repeat, 12-stitch repeat. Wanted to see what that would look like. Then I had got given another incredible, and we've all got these sorts of skeins. This is a, I think this is a Malabrigo, and I only had a single skein of it. So I thought, oh. So, I mean, both of these, as you can see, are very plain sort of tonal, not even tonal actually, looking yarns. Very, very plain, show the stitch definition really well. And I thought, well, what would happen if I did the stitch on something that was a little bit busier? And so that's what it looks like on it, busy. And there were 2 things that I liked. One is it didn't quite show the level of definition of the fanning that you would get in the plain, but what it did do on something tonal like that is see the ripples that it created. You got to see the ripple effect, and I thought, oh, I really like that idea. So then I started playing around with yarns like this. This is a Noro. And I mean, these are only the 4 that I have here. I mean, I've probably knitted this project 2 or 3 dozen times, and variety of different yarns, and most of them have gone out as gifts. So you're only getting to see what I've actually still got. And that's what it looks like in a Noro. But it just shows you how a single stitch pattern and a single pattern can translate and do so many different things across so many different yarns. So then I explored that, and then I played around, and I thought, well, what would happen if I turned it into a hat? Now, to be fair, the first hat I knitted was actually in this. Well, this is, in case you're wondering, this is silver lining, red triangle. And that hat, actually, I've only just recently lost. I left it in a taxi when I was overseas. I've only just lost it. And I knitted a hat to match that. And so that's what it looks like in a hat. And as you can see, this yarn is not too dissimilar from this one, actually, from a colour perspective. And this is a possum yarn, and I just love the idea with it. This I haven't written up into a pattern. I actually do need to do it. It's on my Marie needs to get round to doing list. But, you know, it just shows that you can play around with a single stitch pattern and actually create a whole bunch of coordinates off that pattern relatively easily. You just need to sort of dive in and do it. Had I taken, you know, did I think, oh, how am I going to do that shape? Well, I didn't think about it. I knew the basic construction of a hat, and I thought, well, how's that going to work? In fact, the very first one of these that I did, I worked in the flat and then seamed it. And then I figured, no, actually, I think this is going to work better in the round. So I did it in the round. And I just played around. The only constraint that I knew was the stitch pattern that I had was a 12 stitch repeat, 12 stitch variant repeat. So that was my parameter. So anything that I cast on in the round or anything that I had to do had to be multiples of 12, which when it comes to hats is quite good, because of course hats love things in nice clean multiples, because you need to do divisions for your crown. And so there were happy friends there. So then I had a deep dive in the wardrobe for this. I haven't worn this for such a long time, and it desperately needs a depill, but it doesn't matter. Then I'm going to show you this. I knitted this years ago from yarn that I had. It's a 20% possum yarn that we had manufactured for an international client. And so there you go. And I wanted to make a garment using that feather and fan. So there it is there. And I got up to this point here. So I did it across the bottom, and I'm going to let you in on a secret. Initially, when I did this, I was going to feather and fan it all the way up and had the whole thing as this beautiful shell in this lovely feather and fan. That was the plan. By the time I got to here, and I'll see if I can find it for you. Yeah, I can. It's right there. By the time I got about 3/4 of the way up, and I don't know whether you can see it there. You can see I went a bit off track. And somewhere along the line, I picked up a stitch wrong, or I got my patterning out of whack by one. And I didn't realize it until I got about probably 3 or 4 repeats up. And I found it, and I thought, oh. And I mean, this is me. So, I mean, and I'd done this to measurement. I was so proud of myself. I'd actually knitted a swatch, and I'd measured the gauge. This is the very first project I'd ever done for myself, where I had done all the maths myself and worked things out. And I'd actually done this based on my hip measurement. Fatal mistake, but that's all right. You learn these things as you go along, because I was worried about covering the widest part of my body, because those are the things that I worried about then. And so as you can see, it's really wide. There is enough positive ease in there to think about what I can do. And oh yeah, and I was devastated. And I thought to myself, oh, am I going to rip this back? And then I thought, oh, nah. So I threw that garter stitch in there, and then I sort of thought, well, if I carry on up and keep it plain, it would sort of kind of have a bit of a drop waisted sort of an effect, which was very 1920s. And I felt that the feather and fan was kind of 1920s as well. And then I needed to do some shaping. And this is before I knew about rightward and left leading decreases, the things you learn. So, of course, all my shapings only went in one direction. There they are. See them? And in fact, I got them the wrong way round, because I didn't know in any other way. So I did some decreasing in there to pull things in a little bit. Sorry, I've got this on because I'm cold. It's actually not too bad today, but the she shed's a bit cold this morning. And I can't put the heater on because the heater's noisy. And anyway, my chair's creaky. I need to oil the chair. So anyway, so I carried on. And then I got up to the armpits. As you can see, when I put this on, it's way too big. And then I started shaping for the neck. Now, I had all these plans for the neck. And in fact, if I was going to do this again, I'm quite into rolled necks. I'd probably do that. But anyway, I had all these plans for the neck. And then I sort of thought, oh, and the neckline, for what I knew back then, isn't too bad. It's not too bad. She ain't perfect, but it's not too bad. And then I decided to pop more of this feather and fan around the top. And as you can see, I actually got that a wee bit better. And what I did do when I did this, because I didn't even know how to do it in the round then, look, I'd seamed it because I didn't know, by this stage, had I done this in the round? Yeah, I'd done the most of the body in the round, but I just hadn't figured out, I hadn't put my head into what this would look like in the round. So I just sort of, so I seam it. See, because you learn. And anywho, I managed to do it. And what I did do was let me think about this. I know what I did. That's right. It's all coming back to me now. It's a bit like a Celine Dion song. That's right. I wanted the scalloping edge. See how it's got that lovely scalloping edge? That scalloping edge is primarily at the beginning of the work, not at the end of the work. So what I did is I measured, that's right, and I knitted the collar separately as a separate piece. And I cast it on and I started knitting it with a smaller needle and then actually graduated down to a bigger needle, which is what I based my measurement on, a bigger needle. So this is sewn. I sewed this on. That's right. And what I did, and the reason I did that is I wanted the collar to actually taper in and sit flat. And I actually managed to achieve that. So I was quite pleased. I hardly ever wear this because obviously the fit isn't fantastic. I'm big, but it's way too big for me. But you know what? I don't care. Every now and then I just pull it out and think, because it's possum. It's 20% possum merino. It's absolutely beautiful. But I've kept it, and every now and then when I do wear it, I actually look at it. I feel really nostalgic about this and quietly proud because I learned so much from making this garment. And I think that's one of the things, because this is a journey. Often your skills and your knitting is a journey, and you don't always get it right first time. And one of the things that I've seen, and I think that this is a symptom of social media, is that often you will see these incredible garments posted, or people will be knitting things, or you'll see them in Ravelry on Instagram, and they all, like, they're styled or they've been set up and they all look absolutely fantastic. And you'll see these images and you think, oh, I really want to make that, but it has to look just like the image, or it has to be perfect, or it has to be this, or it has to be that. And oh my gosh, I've made a mistake. I've seen this so many times where people haven't quite got an increase or a decrease right, or the yarn over isn't quite in the right place, or they've knitted where they should have purled, and then they've discovered the mistake, and there's no easy way to go back and fix that mistake. And people actually panic and they think, oh, but I have to have it perfect. Bullshit. I'm telling you, that's absolute bullshit. No, you don't. No, you don't. And I think that we have fallen into a trap of perfection, and we're our own worst enemies because we want to have it be absolutely perfect. And to be honest with you, no, you don't. Especially if you're making it for yourself, especially if you're making it for a gift. Because you're actually you are hand making this, you are doing this with love. It does not have to be 100% perfect and pristine. Now, if you're a commission knitter and you're knitting on commission for someone else, well, I mean, that's between you and the final client, obviously. But when it comes to stuff like this, that I wanted to create a garment for me, and I did. I finished it. Is it perfect? Hell no. Am I proud of it? Hell yes. And I, because of the things that I learned. So for me, this is actually a journey garment. This is something that I pull out, like I pulled it out this morning, and I thought, yeah, you know, and I mean, I did this probably, this would predate child number 2. So this is more than 12 years old. And it just, and it shows the journey. Actually, and this is another little thing I'll show you too. See the things you learn. So as you can see, that's the edging that I popped on the sleeves. This little edging, I was so in love with this edging back in the day. Oh man, was I what? And it's really straightforward. It is literally picking up all your stitches around that seam, picking them up, then knitting, then coming back. Oh, I never did anything in the round. It was always in the flat in those days, like that. So I think I would have started up there to bury the seam. So I picked it all up, then knitted back. So I had a garter bump, and you can't see it because it's actually bumped out. And then I cast off. Oh, there we go, camera. Cast off, and it just gives you a really nice little edgy seam. And I don't think it was this garment, I think it was in a previous garment, I learned all about picking stitches up, and particularly when you're picking up along the edges, and you'd need to pick up, instead of picking up every stitch, I think the first time I ever did this, I picked up every stitch, and of course it went a little bit wibbly wobbly, and I'm thinking, I don't understand why that is, because I didn't understand the theory that actually a stitch is wider, than there are differences between the length of a stitch and the width of a stitch. You know, all of these little things that unless you actually physically give it a go and throw caution to the wind, that you actually figure out and work out. So that's sort of part of a journey that I'd taken from, you know, where did I put that? Luke. Oh, here it is. So taken from something like this from Stitch Dictionary, all the way through to fingerless gloves, to cowls, to hats, to scarves, to a garment. I still to this day use this pattern. It's still my number one favorite. I will do swatches with it, and every now and then, I even knitted. Actually, one of the very first things that I was ever asked to do for Design Spun was a series of patterns, and actually one of the patterns that I submitted was the cutest little baby dress. Bearing in mind I had boys, so I never got to knit things for little girls. And it was just like a round neck sort of singlet with eyelets that you could put a ribbon through, and then a gentle, soft flared skirt in this feather and fan. It was so cute. Never went forward into production, but it was the cutest little thing. Yeah, so that's sort of part of that journey. The other one that I think I showed you the other day, and I haven't got the original swatch in here because I must have packed it back away. It was colour. You know, about around the same time I was discovering this feather and fan, I discovered a slip stitch pattern using 3 colours, which I've now since learned as a form of mosaic knitting. And, you know, and this is it here. I have done, honestly, I've got a baby beanie pattern, and that I've used the Harding Road, which is sitting, no, I've tossed it back down there. I use it on that. This is going to be the Harding Road cowl when I eventually get the stuff to Ethan to write up. It's about taking you on a journey and not being afraid to go on that journey, and not being afraid. Like the first one of these I knitted, which I knitted while I was away in the pink, the gold. I've done 2 of these. I didn't do this. I didn't change the ribbing out at the back. I just did a single colour in pink, and it just was a bit much. And then I thought, no, I really do need to have this contrasting cast on, cast off. And actually, see how I've gone and done that? That's going to segue beautifully into this perfection and what I'm going to talk to you next. So see that, right? See how I've gone and changed the colours out? Do you want to know why I've done that? Simple, very simple. I had 3 balls of this. I mean, this yarn's at $15.95 ball of yarn. It's not the cheapest yarn in the world. It's 20% camel. It is a luxury yarn. I had 3 balls. My challenge to myself was to create a design and a cowl using 3 balls and to get the dimensions where I wanted them. So I had the width. I mean, I like this slightly longer, deeper width, which is similar to what I've got on. And I had calculated how much patterning I wanted in between. I knew how much ribbing that I wanted to have it sit and hold. And away that I went, and then I literally got to the end, and let me just see which is which. Yes, so this was my cast on edge. Here, it tracked along. I literally got up to here, and I could see that I did not have a shit show in hell of winning Yarn Chicken to have enough navy blue to put in that ribbing at the end. It just was not going to happen. I couldn't slice or dice this any other way. But what I did have was plenty of the red and plenty of the gold. So what I did is I thought, well, who says that it has to be navy at both ends? It can still be balanced and not be exactly the same. So I switched the colors around and I did the gold instead and then trimmed it in the navy. And to be honest with you, when you're actually wearing this, if you're wearing something that is predominantly navy, and actually I'll take this off and I'll show you. If you're wearing something that is predominantly navy and you want the navy to show, you wear it with the navy bridge forward. If you're wearing something that is where you want the gold to predominantly show, you flip it around and you wear the gold towards the top and make it forward. And I did that because I wanted to make sure that when we did this pattern, it could be something that could be completed with just the 3 balls of yarn. Did you guys hear that? It's my tummy. Sorry. Just the 3 balls of yarn. That's what I wanted to do. So that is a modification that I made purely out of practicality. Now, what has been happening over the last few days is we have been fielding a whole heap of emails. Now that the announcement was made that the web store has been opening, you can imagine loads of emails. When is our yarn going to arrive? When are you going to be restocked of this yarn? Loads of people have started projects while they're away, while they've been in lockdown, and actually have not had enough yarn. I mean, it all happens to us, doesn't it? It's quite, I mean, it's just happens. It's life. Unfortunately, we have, I mean, all of this happened. We had just finished our annual sale event and we literally had only just started restocking a few bits and pieces, and we went from our annual sales event into lockdown, and I think it was a space of 3 weeks. It was a very short space of time. It wasn't even 4 weeks, so very short space of time. So we have gone into this with probably much lower stocks in our warehouse than we would normally like. So loads of these emails have been coming in. Marie, when is this yarn going to be back in stock? When is that yarn going to be back in stock? When can we get hold of this? And that's one of the conversations we've been having with the mill in the last couple of days. Now, if it's a yarn that we bring in from elsewhere, so primarily Outlaw Yarn, Deborah has pretty good stocks of most things, and we've been making from when the level changes and she can send yarn to us and we can get yarn in from her, we will be bringing yarns in. And we were lucky that we had one lot of yarn that we were able to get in before the criteria changed. And also we had another big lot of yarn arrive just before the lockdown. So we had stock there, we could restock. If it's something that we manufacture, well, Skeins is more than just the web store or the yarn store. Skeins is actually part of a much bigger business. We're actually part of a group with the mill. Now, when I say much bigger business, in the actual scheme of things, when it comes to business classifications in New Zealand, we are actually considered a small business. We don't employ a massive number of people. And we, in fact, what we achieve with the really tight-knit team that we have is really quite incredible. But we are big for our little community here in New Zealand. And so we make the yarn ourselves. Well, see, of course, they've been on lockdown now for 28 days. So everything is ground to a halt then. So this is me, a very long-winded way of me saying, yes, a lot of those key core lines are definitely coming back in, without a doubt. When those will be coming back in, to be honest with you, we don't know. Some of those were processing through the mill before the shutdown, and I know there were a number of Perrindales that were already processing through. I think there was a few Merino softs. So all of those that were already in process, they will be coming through first, because they've either, I mean, a lot of them have already been dyed. They just need to be caked and balled and banded and dispatched. So those will be coming through soon. A huge number of what we've had, of course, is sold out since we have had the web store back open. Those will take a wee bit longer, because the entire process, whether or not it needs to be, the base yarn needs to be manufactured, or whether it needs to be dyed, it could take, I mean, I hate to say this, but it could take up to 2 or 3 months, if not longer, for some ranges to come back in. It's just how it is. But this isn't the end of the world. I've been thinking about this overnight, and I actually think that this is the time, if you've got a project out there, and I actually replied to a few emails like this morning when I was doing them. If you've got a project out there, and most people will have gotten to, this is what I'm going to show you, this one, would have gotten to a point in the project, and then they've realized, I'm going to have to, I need a little bit more to finish a base or a cardi or a sleeve or whatever it may be. The reality of it is that we're not going to have the same batch anyway. So you've got a couple of options. Option one is do feel free to use the Skein Speakeasy. If you're looking for a little bit of yarn just to finish a project, or a single ball of something, see if someone in the Speakeasy has it, and when the risk level lowers and they're able to send it to you, they might be able to get that yarn to you, and you can make an arrangement with them to either barter or purchase or whatever it may be to get that yarn to finish it off when it is safe to do so. Option one, we've been doing that as crafters and knitters for forever. Option two, though, is that, you know what, does it really need to be finished with that colour? Can you actually completely break out and do something completely different, and actually add something really radical and crazy to finish it off with, using a different colour within the same yarn range, or even jumping over and doing something completely weird and random, and to create something quite crazy? I call them Corona Cardis, because I think that, you know, in a way, that's part of a journey, isn't it? If you finish a project and you've gotten to that last sleeve or the bottom of a cuff, and you realize that I am not going to win that yarn chicken. How am I going to finish this off? Think outside of the square. And you know what you will have? Is you will have a garment or a project, whether you gift it to somebody else or you have it for yourself, that you will look at that and you go, this is my Corona Cardi. This is what I had to do. This is the sacrifice that I had to make to finish that off. And in a way, it is like a postcard of your journey that you've had, isn't it? And I have a cardigan exactly like this. It was obviously not a Corona Cardi, but it is a cardigan. I mentioned it actually a few weeks ago. So this is a cardigan that I actually wore a few weeks ago. I knitted this using a fine 4-ply merino. It was, look, it's even got a hole in it. I mean, I thrash this cardigan. It is my favourite around the house. I adore it. And I already knew that so that is what I wanted to, that in my head, that is what I wanted to do with colour blocking. Okay, so I made this lovely sort of cuff at the bottom. I added a little bit of yellow there. This was the cuff that I wanted for the sleeve. I had it all planned out. And I thought I was the duck's nuts. And I did a bit of weighing of yarn, and then I knitted all of this out of thread waste yarn. So it wasn't premium grade yarn. Now, if you don't know what thread waste is, people who visit our store will know what this is. We have thread waste, which is the ends of the caking process that is not enough to go through to be balled, and it's often spaghetti-like, that ends up going into bags and is sold by weight. And that's what this stuff was thread waste. And it was, and often it goes in there too, because it's gotten a little bit tangled, and it's just too tangled for our machinery to go through and ball it, and it's just too difficult, too time consuming for someone to sit there for ages and carry on and untangle it to go through a machine. So it just gets bagged up and sold. So that's what I made this from, and I'd weighed it and done some calculations. I thought I would be fine. What I hadn't calculated in my mathematics was, as I made a modification from a DK pattern, and as you can see, there's some yoke. It's a yoked pattern. The yoked pattern that I modified this from actually had a lace motif through here, which I didn't do. What I hadn't factored into my calculations when I did my knit maths is that yoke patterning through here took less yarn than what it does when it's knitted solid, right? I also hadn't factored when I did this rolled collar how much yarn would take for both of those. So two things happened. Thing number one that happened was as I got down and I knitted it, and I actually got to a certain point and I realized that I was going to run out of grey yarn. So I ended up, and I worked out I wasn't going to have enough yarn to do, I've got a piece of fluff on my lip and it's driving me mad. I wasn't going to have enough grey yarn to do the sleeve. So I actually I'd worked this down longer, down to about sort of here, and I worked it to match that, right? So that sleeve initially was exactly like that. And I thought, oh, crikey, I'm not going to have enough to do the sleeve here. So I actually ripped it back, unraveled enough yarn to finish the sleeve on the other side, and then thought, oh, that's okay. I'll just make a bigger colour block on this sleeve here using the starker grey yarn. That's fine. No problem. I'm a genius, Marie. I'll figure it out. Yeah. Then I started knitting on the other side. Where is it? Knittedy knit, knit, knit. Oh, there you go. Look, hole under the underarm. Knittedy knit, knit, knit. Got down, felt really good. And then I got down and I realised, uh-oh, I'm not going to have enough yarn to do the sleeve to match the other side of the dark grey. What I did have, though, was plenty of yellow. And I thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. So all I did was match them up and reverse them out. Had enough? Why not? So that's what I did. And this is what I think I'm saying to you. This is what I am saying to you, is don't get too caught up in thinking, oh God, I've got to wait, I've got to get this finished, or this has to be perfect. It doesn't. Give yourself a shaking. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can figure out an alternative. So if you can't beg, borrow, or steal, or coerce somebody else to sell you what it is that you need to make a project, figure it out. Throw in a colour block on a sleeve, or do some unraveling. Put some striping or something really exciting in there. You don't need to keep it looking perfect at the moment, because you know what? I don't think anybody will mind. And particularly if this is on a baby garment and it's going on a baby, I can guarantee you 100% that baby won't care, not in the slightest. So give yourself a break, enjoy your knitting, enjoy it. And if you do happen to run out of a colour and you aren't able to get what you want, throw caution to the wind and have a look at other colours that we've got there and see how we can, how you can create something truly, truly special that years from now you can pick up out of your cupboard or see it being worn by somebody that you love and actually go, I remember when that I made that change or did that thing. Right, I've talked enough today. Tomorrow, I'm really excited. You may have seen I popped up a tile earlier. So excited about this. We've got Libby Johnson back from Truly Myrtle. When I spoke to Libby in the first week of quarantine diaries, obviously I didn't have technology that I have now, and so this week we will be able to talk and see each other, and we're going to actually talk about two of her most popular patterns, which are two of the most popular patterns on the Skein Speakeasy, which are her Floozy collection, both the cardigan and the sweater, and also her Timely cardigan, and actually how to get the most out of those. I know a number of people have knitted one or the other and are wanting to switch them around, and both of those designs are designs that are perfect for actually mixing and matching, particularly mixing and matching yarns that you may already have in stash, or if yarn there is a little bit on short supply, how you actually are able to create those cardigans and get something that is just incredible with what's available currently. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But until then, enjoy the rest of the day. I will see you again tomorrow with Libby. And yeah, and remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be made with love. Until then, bye.